deal with item 8 at this stage, which is the report looking at the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, which is colloquially known as RIPA, in terms of what goes on. Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I'm conscious of the time, so I'll be as brief as I can be. The purpose of bringing this report before you is to really bring to your awareness and overview of the Scrutiny Committee the use that the local authority is making of its powers under RIPA, and to ask you whether you wish to scrutinise that use of the Act, and if you do, how you would like to do that. Just to briefly put it into some context, the Act has been in force for a number of years, and it essentially does what it says. It regulates how public bodies carry out certain investigative functions. It regulated a position which, prior to the enactment of the Act, was fairly unregulated in terms of what public authorities could and couldn't do, in terms of surveillance in particular. So the Act essentially covers the use of local authorities of covert surveillance in any investigation it carries out, and also in the obtaining of communications data. And it was used for a number of years without any great note. And then in the last couple of years, it's been the subject of quite a lot of scrutiny, publicity, and comment. Some of it fair and accurate, and some of it not so fair and accurate. And I think it's raised the issue certainly in public awareness, and I think it's important in terms of some of the discussions you've heard earlier about safeguarding issues, that we as a local authority are clear and transparent on what we are using these powers for, and that it is scrutinised in some way, albeit it's obviously for you as members to consider how you would like to do that. I want to stress that it is quite prescriptive in terms of what local authorities can do. There are certain powers under the Act which local authorities do not have and are restricted to other public bodies, notably the intelligence services and the police. And in that regard, I should make an apology that in the first paragraph of the report it talks about the interception of postal telecommunications information. In actual fact, local authorities can't intercept postal telecommunications information. We can't, contrary to some publicity you might have seen, intercept private emails. We do not have that power. What we do have power to do, and what we've used and is set out in the report, is we do have certain power in certain circumstances to obtain subscriber information or itemised bills, but we don't actually have the ability to get the content of conversations or emails or information from services that provide those services. And it is very closely regulated. We can only use the powers of surveillance or obtaining communications data for the purposes of the prevention or detection of crime or prevention of disorder. We have to use those powers only when we can obtain the evidence in any other way, and it's very heavily regulated in terms of the circumstances in which we should exercise those powers and the processes by which the use of those powers should be authorised. It is the subject of a scheme of regulation, and there's a body called the Office of the Surveillance Commission who comes in and inspects all public bodies who use these powers on a regular basis. We have to keep a central register of all the authorisations which are given under the Act, which is held within legal services. And obviously, the use of the powers is very, very closely monitored by solicitors in my team, and a lot of the cases result in court action where, again, the use of the power is scrutinised by the courts. What we've done is we've set out in the report the actual times that we've used the powers in the first quarter of the new authority. We've used the acquisition of communication data once, which was in relation to a trading standards matter, and we've set out there in very brief terms at the bottom of page 15 what that was used for and why. We've used the powers of surveillance, and that's set out over the page on page 16 3 times, and again we've given you some very brief details of the type of matter that we have sought to use the powers for, and what we anticipate we might do as a result of the evidence that we've obtained in the course of that surveillance. I should say that as a result of some of the reporting that there has been, the government has run a consultation on the extent of the use of powers under the Act. The deadline for responding to that consultation has now passed. It passed in July, but as yet we don't know what the outcome of that will be, although it is anticipated that there could be some changes. And some of the questions that were asked in that consultation were around whether or not public authorities should have the ability to use, local authorities should have the ability to use surveillance at all, and if they should, what the circumstances should be of doing that, and what the processes and oversight of that should be. Certainly there's some suggestion that it should have to be authorised at a more senior level than is currently the case. Should say that we in legal services are providing a programme of training for officers involved in the process, and as a result of the restructuring processes that are going on, that hasn't been finalised yet, but we would anticipate delivering that very shortly to make sure that those staff involved in the process are clear on the legal framework within which they're operating and the policies and procedures which this authority operates, which were approved by the Executive on the 18th of March 2009, and you have appended to this report a copy of the report that went to the Executive setting that out. Happy to answer any questions that then have.
Thank you very much, Simon. Very